Welcome to my girls video, guitars I really love. Stupid title, I know, but I chose it because that's what is true about these guitars. These are guitars that I really love. They live at home and they are hanging from hangers on my walls and they get taken down every day. I play at least one of these, if not more of them, and some of them more often than others. This is number 2 in the series, and there's no particular order for these, but I have to say this one, I absolutely adore this guitar, and there are some straightforward reasons for it, but let me just describe it to you. And I'm trying to do this from the point of view that I'm used to these things, and also a voice in my head goes, they're not interested in your little guitars, and a part of my brain is going, yeah, but you live with it every day. Describe them, talk about what works and what doesn't work. So hence this little series. So what we've got here is we have a prototype, okay, and this in my little list of different things, this is an Oakcaster, and the reason it's an Oakcaster, cheesy name, but it's one of the first series or range of guitars I made. Yeah, okay, hold on a second, I'm going to see if I can adjust the frames per second business. Let me check in the settings, hold on. Okay, well, according to the settings, Hawaii doesn't do at 25 frames per second, so I'll have to kind of forget that on here. But anyway, sorry if it flickers. Yeah, so this was one of my earlier ones, and I think I made this in 2016, and it's in oak, which a lot of my initial guitars, the very first one I made was in oak block, and I stuck with oak because I just love it. There's something. It's not. I'm trying not to sound patriarchal and patriarchal and patriotic. Yeah, those two words. Like oak, the wood that made England what it was. Blah blah blah. But it is a beautiful tree and it's a beautiful solid wood. And yeah, it's mostly used for furniture and ships and things like that historically. But it's a lovely English wood and it's heavy, and when I first used it people said you can't use wood, it's not a tone wood, and I just thought, well, you know what, I can and I will. So I went ahead and I made them. So this is one of my first double cut guitars. The first guitars were kind of they were more like that. Ooh, someone's downstairs. They were more like that, so they were single cut and they were quite small, and the body anyway is small, so they were designed for going travelling sort of thing. And I made them with as simple as possible neck fitting, so that you could take it apart, very snug neck fitting, so you could push the two parts together, and when you did the bolts up, this thing would lock in place. You wouldn't have any alteration to action. You strung it up again and this thing would be ready to play without any change in action. So it was dependable wherever you went. So so this one is number 16, Oakcaster 16. The first double cut Oakcaster in my series was, sorry, I don't got my sleeves. First in the series was number 11. Number 12 went to a gigging musician by the name of Russell. 13 stayed on the peg for a while, as did 14. 15 was a left-hander, and 16 is this one, and 16 was the first one, I think the first headless guitar I did. So I bought one of these little Chinese bridgy things, which everybody slags off and calls it pot metal, Chinese pot metal, it's rubbish, and so on and so on. But you've got to remember that the sort of alternatives, if you're looking into making guitars, are sort of 200 to 300 quid for even anywhere near as functional a alternative to that. But anyway, we'll come back to that. So this is a chunk of oak. It's smaller bodied than a regular guitar, and you can see it's got a nice curve, forearm slope, and you can see it's picked up a lot of oil from my arms, and it's gone shiny. So this guitar has been played a lot, but it's a lovely sort of, this is my sort of favourite contours that I sort of perfected a bit, or I made a bit of a thing out of. This one is similar, but a little bit shallower, but I like the concave sort of feel that you get, a scooped out feel under there like that, lovely curve, and a rounded off heel joint as well, and then reshaped the heel to make the heel of the neck to go with it. So anyway, this was started off as you can see in the pictures on Facebook, this was a very solid slab, and I routed all of this out. And then I upcycled a cheap Chinese neck to become the donor neck, and it's quite flat in profile, and I reshaped it a little bit, but certainly around the heel, reshaped it, and then put it together and put some wipe-on poly, which is sort of slightly dulled back. It's not a brilliant finish, but you know, it's tough. It's been there all that time, and it still works perfectly well, and there's a Morris in there. And then this was the headpiece that came with the original bridge, the Chinese bridge. And then on the back here, we've got a bit sharper edges around here. We've got a Wengi cavity cover, and we've got a massive knot there, which has got a great split in it. And then we've got a gold jack plug, and we've got a tuner knob that lives in a magnetic housing in here. I saw somebody did this, somebody on the internet had done this with one of these kind of guitars, because you get a little tuning crank here, a little crank handle which sits inside magnetically, and it's a bit fiddly. It works perfectly well, but it was a bit too fiddly for my liking, so I and this other person ended up making a homemade tuning knob, which is actually a hex key set in resin in an old knob, and set in the magnetic dock here. And it's really nice because it just locks in place, and it, in all these years, you can see I've gigged with it and it hasn't got lost. So really it's a very simple guitar. It's got a 0-degree angle going to this sort of bridge. This bridge works really well with a 0 angle. The reason I went for this bridge is, unlike all of the other bridges, including the one I've got here on Trekkie number 6, which I'm still not sure how much I care for these bridges or not, but every other kind of headless bridge has tuner sticking out the back, and that makes a real problem, because first of all they're all lined up. You either have to cut away something, make a big rebate shape. So most of the guitars with headless bridge units like this, with the sticking out the back whatsits, have a cutaway, and it dictates the shape of the guitar. This one was attractive because you could put this, because the tuners stick up, you could put this on any shape of guitar you wanted and just chop the head off. So you could put it on a Les Paul, you could put it on a Strat or whatever. And then with the little tuner unit, the tuner unit sits on there, and you just do a quick turn of it and it's in tune, and then you move across the other ones, and there you go. So and I can even do it. It's not easy, but you can do it with your fingers, but it's not ideal, hence the tuner button. So it's a very simple design, and it's kind of I based it on what had worked before, and particularly the one that Russell had and went and gigged with in his function band, which was great. He used to send me videos of him playing with this little thing, and the great thing for him was that he could take the neck off, put it in his rucksack, take it on the carry-on luggage, get out the other end, reassemble it in the hotel room, tune it up, and he'd be ready to play at the venue, whilst his bandmates were sort of sitting in baggage reclaim, worrying whether their stuff had been nicked or whatever, broken by the baggage handlers. So that was the design's original purpose. But I've started to really enjoy the kind of small scale of it, and it makes a really great pub guitar, because when you're on a little stage and there's no room, this is fully functioning, great sound, and it doesn't take up any of the space that other guitars do. So like I say, upcycled neck. I think I refretted this one. I'm pretty sure I did. A Chinese, fairly flat radius. I just went through a series of different pickups. Originally, I think I had some, can't even remember now, I had some Zebras in there for a while, and I had some Seymour Duncan / pickups in for a short while, and they went somewhere else. And eventually I settled on a set of Railhammers, which I really love, and these are unusual humbuckers. They've got a fantastic clear articulate tone, which I just adore. These are a pair, these are a different pair, they're not part of the same pair. I think this one is I think this is a Hyper Vintage, and this is a Chisel, but they're both humbuckers, and they work pretty well together. And then at the end down here, you've got this kind of odd little headpiece that the Chinese made with a little drawer at the end. You don't really see it very well here, but it actually came with a little drawer that things could almost fit in. But actually what it's got is a couple of screw holes, if I can get to see it. Anyway, there are a couple of screw holes in there where you screw the piece into the end of the guitar. And I think it also has does it have downward screws? No, I'm not sure it does, but it's a pretty effective little unit, and I've been hanging this thing from its headpiece for years, and it works absolutely great. It came originally with a little brass adjustable nut, and I replaced it with a bone one, which you can see I cut to shape to fit it inside this thing. And actually, what it also does is, if I were going to do it again, I might use this piece and shape a tusk nut in there and put it on grub screws, because the difficulty is getting in here to adjust the slot, so you're really struggling to do that. But you can see I've got a kind of incredibly low first fret action going on this thing, but it plays absolutely beautifully. Anyway, yeah, so we're quite a way into this, and I'll do some tones on this in a minute, but this is Oakcaster 16. I love it because it's a lovely object in from my point of view. In other words, I love the warmth of the wood. It's spinning here. I love the wood, the oak. It's got character. I remember somebody telling me when I first did it, they said, if you make a guitar out of oak, it splits, you fool. It's going to split and get into focus, please. Any chance of that? Thank you. It's going to split and fall apart, and it hasn't. It would do if you left it out in the sun, right? In the garden. Oak is not a great wood for outdoor weathering untreated. It doesn't, it will bleach and split and so on. I think one of these little screws is stripped, so I have to lift it out carefully. But it has a lovely feel to it, and it warms up. Let me just put you down somewhere. Okay, I'm not sure how well this will work at all. Yeah, rest there for a minute. Yeah, lovely and warm, and it's just fantastic to hold. Heats up when you're playing. Okay, so this one is sort of, all right, now it'll come out. Thank you. Right, and so there's the business end of it. Now, there's only two push pots in there and a three-way switch, but that's quite a lot of stuff to get in a small space, and that's become a bit of a trademark in my designs. A lot of stuff in a small space. Anyway, but yeah, so the reason I love this thing is, first of all, it's the first headless I made. It's a single piece of oak, which to my mind makes it a beautiful thing just to hold. It's got a fabulous balance. It has a lovely density to it. It's because it's small. Just because it's small doesn't mean it's light. It's got a really nice weight. I can't remember how much it weighs now, but it just sits beautifully in the center of gravity, as in your kind of midriff area, or where, depending on where you're wearing it. But it is beautifully balanced, and the tone's great. It's beautiful to play. It's so light and innocuous in action. I mean, there are a few guitars in my collection I pick up and just feel as good about when I pick them up. And the other thing about this one, which has been an interesting thing because it's convinced me to carry on using it, is that the tuning stability on this is fantastic. It's got partly to do with the fact that it's headless, full stop. So there's no slack stored up here on tuning knobs. But this thing, despite being slightly fragile, this thing is incredibly stable once you've set it up. Now, the fragility is to do with the pot metal, the cheap or the low quality steel, and all of these little grub screws. There's two there. There's one holding the thing in place, and so on. There's loads of little grub screws involved in here, and they can strip out very easily when you're installing the thing and setting up the first initial action. But if you learn that, usually the hard way, then you can treat these things with care when you're when you're installing, which, you know, once it's on there, I don't have to do it, obviously. And the only other thing to watch out for is these little tuners. Now, and it's an odd thing, but if you ever come across, I'll tell you this now, so in case you ever come across one of these units and fancy using it, these things are designed to wobble, all right? They are not designed to be finger tight or even stiffened up when the strings aren't on them. When you put the strings on, they stiffen up and they don't move, all right? When the strings are off, these things should be rattly loose, right? They shouldn't even be kind of like this. They shouldn't not move when you touch them. And it's all too easy. People tend to think, oh, that should be tightened up, and they'll get the screwdriver in and tighten them up before they restring it. Once you tighten it up, it kind of runs the risk of it chewing the brass gear wheel in there, and that's when it can get damaged. But as long as you know that this thing, this has to be, you know, looser than you expect, right? And the only amount of tightness you need on it is that it isn't literally fallen off, okay? But once you put the string in and tighten it up with the little crank or the tuning knob, once you do that, this will stiffen up and it will be doing its job exactly as intended. So a huge warning is, I take these apart and I grease all of these little grub screws, and I use very new hex keys whenever I'm tightening them up. I don't use anything that's possibly stripped or worn, because you'll easily, you know, further strip it. So take it apart, grease everything so that everything's kind of not run the risk of cutting new threads as you go in, and just make sure these are never tight, but make sure they don't, obviously they're not falling off, but they must not be, they must wobble when there are no strings on them. And once you know that much, this thing has the most astonishing tuning stability. I've played 3-hour gigs with, you know, break in between, or two sets of an hour and a half, and barely needed to adjust the tuning, check the tuning in between sessions. So it's an amazing thing. Anyway, I just kind of ramble on about that one. But, you know, what do we have here? 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 fret neck. Oh yes, a little bit of an overhang. Right, I'm going to plug it in just so you can hear it. And then the thing about this one is interesting, just in that there weren't any major mistakes. And I can look back, or if you follow the link down to the Facebook folder, you know, this one sort of just came together, and it really was I think a successful formula, in that it's a single piece of oak, so there's no issues of the top drying faster than the base, you know, which you can have in these 2-piece guitars, and you end up with a little lip in a year's time or something. There's no chance of that. It's a single piece. It's sort of, if it dries at all, it kind of shapes itself. It's chunky. You could bang this around. Almost nothing could damage this, and you can fall over in a pub gig having a great time, and it never goes out of tune and repays you with just an amazing range of rock and roll tones from these rally humbuckers, these Railhammer humbuckers, and it's a lovely warm organic thing that you might want to put your gastropub chips and cod on there. But yeah, that's if you give up playing the guitar, you can turn it into one of those fancy gastropub platters. But there you go. That's why I love it, and it's just eminently transportable. Anyway, enough of me gushing about it. Let's just put it on the amp, see if I can get a decent sound. Okay, I think I'll use this little Roland amp again, see if I can just keep it simple, because I know where the tones are on this. By the way, the little lanyard for holding it, its little thing goes in the end there when I'm playing. Also, you can glue you can stick a GoPro to the end of there pretty well too. There you go, that's straight off the peg. I haven't tuned it or anything. So here we have clean tones, everything on sort of middle. That's in the bridge pickup. And then on the neck. Gonna see if I can get copyright hits by other people's management companies. Lots of reverb. That's my sandpaper and brass. This is a base plate of a P90 dyed. I can try my Steve Valance pick, my magnetic one. Help. So that's all in clean tones, so if we kind of dirty it up, this thing can go on forever. Was saying that it will come a point where you can't play a D and an A together without some record company accusing you of playing, I don't know, AC/DC or something. AC/DC. It's amazing. Ooh, farty. It can't handle that, that's for sure. So if you were chaining it, this is how it would work. Well, let's say we do it this way for now. So get me, watch it out. That sticks to there, by the way, because it's magnetic. Yeah, very good clean tones. Fingernails are even longer than anything, but they are. So anyway, the simplest one-piece guitar in some ways that you can make, and just like I say, it will stay in tune for hours on end. That was it. Girl number 2, the Oakcaster 16 on my little collection of mostly sold travel guitars. But you know, this would, I would, if the place was on fire, I would be running for this one and something else. Probably this one would be the first grab. It's actually the only guitar I would need ever. If I never had another guitar, this would do, for all kinds of reasons: for tone, for playability, for portability, for solidity, for warmth, for tuning stability. I mean, everything that matters to me. Tuning, stable, plays and stays in tune, feels great to play, sounds good, sounds great with the Railhammers, looks good, and finally, the brand, the least important thing, but you know, that's why I love it. There you go. Thanks for watching. See you again soon for another girl in the collection.